Hi, welcome to Infusion Health, the podcast. I'm comedian Chris Patrick, a.k.a. a self-proclaimed power man. And I'm here with my co-host and significant other, Rach.
Hey, guys.
Now, Rach, it's been a while since we did a show.
Yeah, it's been a while. We're going to talk about that in another podcast.
In another podcast. But basically, real quick, you decided to go back to school.
I am, and I'm killing it.
And she's killing it. and what are your studies?
I want to get, I don't know about a master's, but definitely a bachelor's in political science and psychology.
Okay, political science and psychology. And what kind of job are you looking for?
I am looking for a DEI advocate.
DEI advocate, which is?
Inclusion and diversity acceptance, going forward and making initiatives so that people can feel like they belong.
Okay, and Rach now goes to the school at Normandale Community College in Bloomington, Minnesota, and she has along with it, and this is going to be interesting because what I don't know and what I've read,
the political views are completely different, and the voice of what is actually going on is very silent.
Okay. Yeah, and sometimes you're like, it's kind of like, we're on this side. It's one of these things where you just don't know which side to be on. And what we're talking about is the Israeli and Palestine war that's going on now, our conflict, whatever you want to call it. And we have here, and Rach can, I guess, his name is Michael Runyon, and he's a student. He's the advisor to the group Students for Palestine at Normandale Community College. And I'm just going to bring him in, Rach.
Absolutely, bring him in.
Michael, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you.
So how did you start this group, Students of Palestine?
Well, I was taking a class at Normandale in Spanish because we were going to be going to Cuba. And of course, October 7th happened. Mm-hmm. After October 7th and the genocide that began on October 8th, I decided that someone needed to speak out in Bloomington, which is not exactly a hotbed of radicality. Mm-hmm. And so I thought about where I might be able to find people to organize. And of course, Normandale Community College has many Muslim students, many students of color, and people who are just interested in what was going on there. So I decided that would be the place that I should start that organizing.
Okay, and so we know, and please educate us. What is going on there? Because I know the Biden administration, this current administration, we've been backing Israel, and he said we're going to back Israel, and now we're saying that we shouldn't back Israel. Who should United States have any involvement in that? Should we be? And we're financially backing these groups. Should we financially back one? Should we pull out? I mean, what?
I think it's fair to first say that Biden is not the first president to give funds to Israelites over in that war. Okay. And it's not Israelites, it's Zionist.
Okay, Zionist. And we did a show on Zionism, didn't we?
No, it was it wasn't Zion. It was, I don't remember. It did start with a Z. I had to go back and research because I'm like, no, I feel bad because of the truth that I put out there. But no, it wasn't Zion. So I can sleep at night now.
Okay. So you got Zionists who are trying to take over Israel, Palestine, and this country is it safe to say this country is divided as far as who gets what? Or
I'm not sure.
I guess it's fair to say for Michael to start where it started.
Well, yeah. Let's go back. How did this all get started?
Okay. First, when we're talking about what's going on now, that is, a lot of people think that this all started October 7th. Mm-hmm. This didn't start October 7th. This started over 100 years ago.
1900.
And you have to put things in context. You can't look at what Hamas did on October 7th and take that as your starting point.
Okay.
You have to have context. And maybe I can give you an example of why context is important. Okay, let's say that I'm showing you a video, and I show you a video. A man walks up behind another man, taps him on the shoulder. He turns around, and the guy just punches him, breaks his nose, bloodies him. Something terrible. You're going to say, that's a horrible guy. He's terrible. He's violent. He's terrible. But you notice that video is kind of toward the end, and you say, well, can I see the whole video? So they start showing you the whole video. Well, the guy that got his bloody nose, it start of the video shows him breaking into the man's house, the other man's house. He ties him up, throws him in the basement, keeps him there, regulates his food, his water, the amount of light he gets, and every now and then goes down and beats the hell out of him.
Michael, I would say it's even fair to say that it's beyond what happened to that guy. It's also what's happening to his family.
Yes, but I'm just trying to draw an analogy here. Okay. My guess is, once again, getting back to context. Okay. This man now gets loose, and he comes up, he picks the lock, comes out the door, taps a guy on the shoulder, he turns around, he bloodies his nose. We're back to where we started for that original video. But I bet you view what he did quite differently with the context that you now have. The fact that he was held as a prisoner in the basement, beaten, all of these things. You don't see him as being quite such a bad guy anymore. And that's why it's important to know the history before October 7th.
Yeah. And what is that history?
Okay. The history of Palestine is, and I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. I think I know more than most people in this country know about Palestine, but I do not hold myself out as an expert. But I think everything I'm going to tell you is factually true. Palestine goes back over 5,000 years.
Yeah.
And it has, like many areas of the world, been conquered by various empires, various kingdoms, and so it has different cultures, it has different religions. In what's called historical Palestine, which is basically from the eastern Mediterranean to the Jordan River and the southern Levant. In those areas, you will find right now, and for many years in the past, largely an Arab population. You will find Christians, you will find Jews, and you will find Muslims. And this has to do, again, with the various cultures and kingdoms that have been in there. And that goes from Assyrians to Romans. It runs a whole gamut. The Ottoman Empire. I'm starting to ramble a little bit here, but you bring that up some then to where we're at in the modern era. Okay, I would recommend, there are a lot of books out there that will give you an even deeper, richer history back before the 19th century, and I would recommend reading those. But we don't have time to go through all of that, obviously.
One book that I read to get my history was Free Palestine, and you can find that on Audible.
Yeah, there, in terms of what brings us up to the modern era and what is going on now and helping to understand that, there are a lot of good books out there, but I'll try and summarize a little bit of the history for the last century or so. And a lot of it starts with the Zionist movement. Okay, up until the end of the 19th century, Palestinians, Palestinian Jews, Palestinian Christians, and Palestinian Muslims lived side by side, quite peacefully, quite stably. Again, probably 95% were Muslim and Arab. Even more Arab. There were Arab Christians and Arab Jews also, but they were a very small minority. But as I said, they did live peacefully and stably. Then the late 1800s, Zionism began.
What is Zionism?
Okay, Zionism is a political ideology and a political movement that seeks to form a state of Israel in Palestine. And the thing about it is, and they openly state this, they want it to be only a Jewish state.
Okay.
Basically, what Zionism did, and it's important to separate Zionism from Judaism. Judaism is a religion. Zionism is a political movement.
Okay.
And basically what Zionism did, though, was to secularize Judaism. It tried to make, like I say, a state in Palestine only of Jews. The only problem with this, of course, is that that area was already inhabited. So in order to form a totally Jewish state there, they had to get rid of the inhabitants that were already there.
Which were the Muslims, the Christians,
yes, largely Arab population that lived there. Which is why, and I'll get into this later, that this is really, there are things about what is going on there, the conflicts that are going on there. A lot of it relates to race, and we'll see that later on. But we're up to the late 18th century now, and the Zionist movement is starting. The first Congress was in, I believe, 1897, and the the Zionist Congress decided they had talked about several different places to form a Jewish state. And they had talked about Argentina, they had talked about Uganda, but none of those really gained any traction, and they decided on Palestine. The start of the 20th century and World War I helped to advance the Zionist movement. And Britain, which was probably the largest empire at that time and most influential empire at that time, was the biggest promoter or supporter of the Zionist movement. Something called the Balfour Declaration, where Lord Balfour told the Zionist movement, indeed, they would help support and form a Jewish state in Palestine. So the Balfour Agreement is something that you should look at and understand the importance of that. That was, like I say, a declaration by Britain that, yes, we're going to support you, and they did.
Okay, so can we move it up to October, what would you say, October 5th or something like that?
If we want to jump all the way to October 7th, and
Can we jump, or should we keep going?
I think we should go to at least 1948.
World War II.
Okay, we can fast forward. Okay, we can fast forward to 1947.
Okay.
In 1947, okay, the British, and I would ask your listeners to go back and look at that period between the start of the 20th century up to 1948, because important things happened back then. But
that was around World War II time, right?
right, World War I, and then what happened after World War I up to World War II is fairly important. So, like I say, I would encourage people to go back and look at that. But we can go up to 1948, and in 1947, Britain, which had been mandated by an agreement settling World War I, they had a mandate. They had defeated the Ottoman Empire in World War I. The Ottomans were the ones who were in control of historic Palestine at that time in the 20s. So they divided up between France and Britain. They gave France Lebanon and Syria, and they gave Britain control of Palestine and Jordan. So that's what was called the British Mandate. The British Empire ruled Palestine from the 20s up until 1947. At that time, for various reasons, the decline of the British Empire, the conflicts that had begun as more and more Jewish settlers had come into Palestine, that conflict was becoming too much for the British to handle. So Britain said, we've had enough of this. We're turning it over to the newly formed United Nations. And in 1948, that's what they did. And in 1948, the United Nations did something that changed Palestine forever. They divided up Palestine. The United Nations, UNSCOP, like I say, it was a newly formed United Nations, and they had very little expertise for the Middle East. They had no real understanding or didn't really care about the indigenous people in the Middle East. So they decided that, yes, we'll give the Jewish people, the Zionists, a state in Palestine. They gave them approximately 55% of the land, even though the Palestinians, the indigenous Palestinians, owned 95% of the land. Even though at that time now, with the influx of Jews from the Holocaust and what was going on in World War II, the Jewish population had grown to approximately 45% at that time. But still, they were given 55% of the land.
When was the end of World War II? Was it 48 or 47?
45.
45. Okay.
Yeah.
I was way off.
So the General Assembly of the UN, with Resolution 181, formed two states. The Jewish state and also the Palestinian state. The Palestinians, of course, rejected this, which a lot of the myths that you will hear is that, hey, Palestine could have had a state already if they had just agreed to that. Right. So we have to go back to context again.
Michael, just tell me if I'm wrong. When they divided the state, it was more like a checkerboard instead of like, this is half and this is your half.
Exactly. And I'll get into that as to why, again, the context of why the Palestinians rejected this division. But first, again, for people who might not have any understanding of what was going on there, I'd like to try and give you another analogy or a metaphor that might help you to understand it a little better, what was going on here. Let's say that there's a catastrophe in Florida with climate change. The seas rise, Miami's inundated, a couple million people lose their homes, and the government says, well, we've got these 2 million people, and we need to put them someplace. So we feel really bad about it too. We feel bad that they lost their homes. So let's put them someplace. Okay, when their relatives first came over, they settled in Minnesota. But then it was too cold, so they went to Florida. But they kind of have some roots out there in Minnesota. So they bring them up here, and they give them over half the state. And they tell people, hey, you got to get out of here. Right. You got to get out of your home. Leave. Yeah. Leave. We're bringing these Floridians up here. Well, this is kind of what was going on with the Palestinians. They had been there their entire lives. Right. They had centuries of farming, of forming communities there. And now the United Nations, without even consulting them, says to them, you only get less than half of your land. And what's more, we're going to give the best land to this Jewish population that has only been here at most for 40 years. Most of them are from Europe. Most of them are white. I think people don't understand what was going on there and why the Palestinians rejected a two-state solution that they were proposing that was totally taking away their birthright. And I think they certainly were justified in doing so, and that is kind of where we're at now. Because then in 1948, after they rejected that, the State of Israel was formed. They declared independence, and a war began, of course, because the Israel army began to push those people out, saying, this is what the United Nations said, get out of here. And so they drove 750,000 Palestinians out of their homes. 750,000 lost their homes. They were either destroyed or taken away, occupied by Israel, and they became refugees. They went to Jordan, they went to Lebanon, they fled to Gaza, they fled to the West Bank. There were Palestinians left within Israel also. And we can talk about what happened to them.
Michael,
also.
I'd like to interject.
Oh, certainly.
From the book, The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine, I was driving my car when I heard, so across the world, the white flag means surrender. Means you're peacefully surrender. No matter what nation you are, you wave a white flag, you're surrendering. And I had to pull over my car when I heard this story, and there's many stories in that book like this one. And the guy waved the white flag, and the soldiers approached him, and they said, pick out 22 teenagers. And then they killed all the teenagers, and then they killed him. And there's just continuous stories like this. And this is only one book.
Yeah, and the book that you were referring to, I would recommend to all of your listeners.
And what's the name of that book?
The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine by Ilan Pappé.
Okay.
It's an excellent book. Ilan Pappé is a Israeli political scientist and historian, and he did this book. Unlike Benny Morris, who is also an Israeli historian, but one who talked about the history of Palestine thoroughly from using Israeli sources. The book by Pape uses the Israeli sources because at the formation and the start of the Zionist movement, they were very vocal about what they were doing. Mm-hmm. And they recorded much of it. It's in the Israeli historical archives. Pape uses that book and those sources, but he also uses Arabic and Arabic sources. And this is important. You can't just look at one side. Even as damning as those Israeli sources are as to what they were doing, the massacres, the ethnic cleansing wasn't always recorded, of course, by those Israeli sources.
Okay, so moving into the day when with this conflict going on, and the American government is backing Israel, and people are saying that he shouldn't back Israel. They should back Palestine more. I mean, where are we standing? Because right now we're kind of standing in the middle. Like what should we do? What should our government be doing?
Chris, and correct me if I'm wrong, Michael. Since 1948, this has not stopped. It wasn't like 1948 happened. You know, like World War II happened, and then we went our own ways, right?
Yeah.
This is a continuous thing.
Okay. And I know this is a continuous thing, but I'm saying
But the listeners don't.
Okay. Should we be supporting Israel? Should we not be supporting Israel? That's the question I'm asking. Which side do you take? And I think that's one of the things that's been going on. And when I listen to the radios and stuff like that, it's like, whose side should we be on? Or should we not be on a side? Should we not choose a side?
Well, I'll speak to that. You know, everybody has to make their own decision.
Mm-hmm.
What I would ask you when you're deciding which side you should support, do you want to support a side that has killed a recorded number of 34,000 people, 14,000 children, and we know that there are many, many more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Innocent civilians, 14,000 children. A government that has bombed hospitals, schools, destroyed every university in Gaza, bombed refugee camps, shot people. I just saw a story yesterday of drones that had gone over the refugee camp in, I believe it was Niger, and they were playing, this was an Israeli drone, they were playing in Arabic sounds of children calling for their parents, saying, "Mama, Mama," to draw, because they knew that people would come out looking for them, and then they shot them. So I think if you look at the actions that are taking place, it's pretty clear what side one should be on.
Yeah.
If you are human and you can look at what Israel is doing, and it is not a war, it is not self-defense. If you can look at what they are doing and say, that's okay, they've got the right to do that, I would say you're not human.
I think it's more than that. Like, you have to educate yourself. You need to educate yourself so the people that are opposing you, you can give them tangible reasons to why. Just a couple of days ago, in Palestine, children were playing on a playground.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Seen the video.
And they killed them.
Yeah.
You know, Michael and me briefly talked about through emails what happened to World Kitchen. This was not just 3 missiles coming at them that had no knowledge. These were knowledgeable, laser precise missiles.
Yeah.
That came one at a time. As people were trying to rescue one vehicle. I mean, they came at 3 different times. The first time they went to go, the people in those 3 vans, 3 vehicles, went to go get the people that survived. And they pulled them to the 2 vehicles. And then another missile comes. And and the people in the vehicles do the same thing and go get the survivors. And then the third missile comes.
But
the thing with World Kitchen was that they were not supporting Palestine. They were supporting people starving.
Yeah.
And World Kitchen had given foods to both sides. This was a neutral source. And just one more thing on World Kitchen. When we, as Americans, were starving during COVID, they started 50 kitchens and one in every single state. This was as neutral as you can possibly have it.
Yeah.
And they were going to feed Palestine people, civilians that were starving.
But why did the U.S. With the start of this? Why did the U.S. go directly? Are they giving the administration false information? Why did they go so much into like we're going to support Israel?
I think it's fair to say that on October 7th, if you look at the original numbers, they have decreased on how many were killed.
Yeah.
If you look at 9/11 on the first day of how many were killed, that increased of how many people were gone. So I think right there answers your question about how much truth that the Zionists are giving to American governments and other governments that are supporting them.
Yes.
So to break it down, the Zionist movement are giving American governments and other governments, they're giving them a line of crap saying, hey, this is what's going on. And we're like, oh, that's bad. So we're gonna support you, but don't know the full truth. And then the question is how much longer with what's going on, how much longer are we gonna keep staying with this false information and keep backing the wrong people? Or do we pull out and not back anybody? I mean,
no. First of all, we got to go back some because no, they aren't getting false information. The United States knows what's going on. I mean, we have an intelligence service, which is a kind of a misnomer there, but we have an intelligence service. We know what's going on. We supply Israel with all of their weapons. They would not have an army if it were not for us. So what this is not, the United States is this source of good and we're just being told the wrong thing here by Israel. No, we know what's going on. We want, the American empire needs to have a hold in the Middle East. And that hold is Israel.
Yeah.
That's why we continue to back Israel. We don't want Israel to disappear. As Joe Biden said many years ago, if Israel did not exist, we'd have to create it.
Yeah.
And the reason he said that was because he knows our interest in the Middle East,
Which are
oil.
I kind of guess. Well, and that's the old analogy. That's the old analogy. What do? Follow the money.
Exactly. And it's not just the oil, because now after the 60s, when we had the oil crisis, we started producing oil like it was going out of style. So we're not as dependent on that oil now. But we do have strategic interests still in Israel. The Suez Canal, the Straits of Hormuz, that is where almost 50% of all shipping goes through those two areas. So we want to make sure that we control that. And how do we do that? We do that through mainly Israel, but also Saudi Arabia, the UAE, you know, those Arab states that we can control, we will. And we don't want to lose that. However, Iran and a free Palestine would not support that. And so we will always support Israel, no matter what. That's just the way it is. But it's not because of false information. It's because of our interest in that area.
Yeah, the oil interest. Like I said before, you follow the money.
Yeah, oil and shipping money. They have to control that area.
So with
I mean, it's fair to say that, you know, you look back at wars and you look at why the reason was, you know,
money.
It was during money. You know, I mean, the reason why Pearl Harbor was bombed, terrible as it is, was because food was being cut off from the people. And so if you're starving, I don't care where you're from. If there's a war in America where somebody is kicking you out of your house and starving you, you're going to be called a thief because you go into a supermarket and go get food. You're going to be called a murderer because the people that are in your house, you go kill. But does that stop you from being in the right side, from claiming back what was yours?
Well, I know. Listen to the news that there's been a few ceasefires to get people out there and stuff like that. Those ceasefires have only been like days or something like that, like a few days here and then it's back to fighting. But we have this. It seems like we have this never-ending battle. And is there hope in sight for?
Let me ask you a question first, though. If you were kicked out of your home today, would you want to leave? Or would you want back the life that you know that you could have? You know, I was watching this TikTok the other day, and there's so many people all over the world that can look on social media and see for a few minutes and rage against what is happening against a nation. But then they get to go outside and enjoy beautiful days like we have today. And those people never stop feeling that.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's kind of typical of what happened to the Native Americans when the white settlers came in, kind of like, hey, we're taking this over.
It's exactly like that. And that's what people don't understand, is that this is settler colonialism.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it is.
Same thing they did in Africa.
Yes. South Africa especially, and that's why it was so important and symbolic when South Africa was the only nation that brought Israel to the International Court of Justice and charged them with genocide. And that court found that there's reasonable evidence to believe that Israel is committing genocide. The special rapporteur for the UN, Francesca Albanese, also looked at the evidence and determined that Israel is committing genocide. So this is not a war. A war is when you have two armies fighting each other. Only one side has an army here.
Yeah.
Only one side has an air force here. Only one side has a navy here.
Well, will Netanyahu face the inside of a courtroom?
Yes, he will. But not an international criminal courtroom, I don't believe, even though he should, because of Western hegemony. But he will face a courtroom if the war or the genocide in Gaza ends, and Israel pulls their troops out of Gaza. He will go to jail. He's already up on all kinds of corruption charges.
War crimes.
No, he hasn't been charged with war crimes, but he should be. But then so should Joe Biden. Because genocide is happening, and the Genocide Convention says that anyone complicit in genocide is also guilty. And we are definitely complicit in genocide.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say, and just to bring it to an everyday thing, like if you know somebody murdered somebody, and you hide that person or support that person, you're also guilty.
Right. You know, you can, again, all of these analogies, okay? The recent court case where the parents of the child who shot up in Detroit, they were convicted because they gave him the gun.
Yep.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
We're giving them the guns. We're giving them the bombs. We're giving them the planes. We're giving them everything.
Okay, but
I think it's fair, but hold on, Chris. I think it's fair to say also in that parent case, the parents knew how mentally unstable that child was and said nothing.
Yeah.
Like they had the education of who their child was.
And we know what is going on.
Exactly.
We know
Exactly.
everything that is going on. We can see it. And Matthew Miller for the State Department can get up there and keep denying and saying, no, we have no evidence of genocide. All he wants. But everybody else can see it.
Right.
They know it's happening. The rest of the world knows it's happening. And the audacity of Matthew Miller just
enrages you. I can see it in your
makes
face.
my head.
But let's look at the big picture, because there's always a big picture. Okay, and we're talking about as far as, you know, backing Israel and what Israel's going and what's going on in Israel. And like we said before, follow the money. The way it looks is like this: is you got these people, and this is both sides. It doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat. It's both sides. You got people who big oil corporations who are backing these candidates, backing them. That's an understatement. Who own these candidates because they give them so much money to their campaigns, and all this money is going to their campaign, and like, we want you to do this, we want you to do this. So they're basically working for a big business, these big oil companies who are doing this. And even though this genocide and all this is going on, you got this big money coming from these corporations backing these candidates who support this stuff and let this stuff go on because it's being backed by this big money, by these big money donors. And that's on both sides.
But it's more than money.
Oh, it's money. It's always money.
I mean, sorry, it's more than oil. It's always money, but it's more than oil, right? I mean,
Right.
There's companies like Amazon that are becoming what you love so much, a monopoly.
Yeah.
That, you know, it's shipment, it's goods, it's oil, it's money.
Yeah.
Right. And also you can't overlook the influence of AIPAC. AIPAC donates so much money to American politicians that almost none of them want to raise the ire of AIPAC.
Yeah. Yeah. The money's coming in.
Money. Exactly.
if you want the money, you want to get elected, we got this money. Here's and a lot of people take it. Now you've had a few, and this isn't me talking. I've read, which is another good book, Through the Ramparts, how Bush and Obama paved the way for the Trump White House by Ralph Nader. And what he says is basically, the money's coming in from both sides, but somebody like Bernie Sanders, who's able to raise a ton of money without taking private donations from these big corporate, and look what they did to Bernie,
Yeah. That's the history of the United States. You can look at the socialist movement in this country. Whenever another movement becomes powerful or starts to gain traction, they are squelched right away.
Yeah.
And you more recently than the socialist movement is the Occupy movement.
Mm-hmm.
You saw what happened to them. As soon as Occupy started to gain momentum, they were crushed.
Yeah.
They were crushed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and this isn't anything, and it's all over the world.
Yeah.
And, we could change the subject to what's going on with essential oils, and we can change it to what's going on with CBD and, just marijuana alone. In the 90s, they threw hundreds, millions of people of color, mainly African Americans, in prison, made that a corporation. And now they're seeing that people are like, okay, I want something more natural and that's actually going to help my body, not just my symptom, but my body. And they're saying, oh, we see money in that. It's all money.
Yeah, it goes to money. Follow the money.
Although there is another thing involved here, and you touched on it a little bit on that, and that's race.
Yeah.
One needs only to look at the way that people responded here to the invasion of Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And the Russian invasion of Ukraine is wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we back Ukraine.
Yep.
We have all kinds of people welcoming Ukrainian immigrants.
Absolutely.
We have people supporting them. I know when Russia first invaded Ukraine, you would see on social media people would put the Ukrainian flag and everything. But that is not what you see with Palestine.
Absolutely not.
And why is that? Palestinians are mainly people of color.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's true. Then I don't know what, but the reason, going back to the reason we back Palestine. I mean, I'm sorry, not Palestine. Ukraine. The reason we back Ukraine because we talked to Ukraine. This was a few years ago and said, hey, you know what? This is what you got to do with your nuclear weapons, and we'll back you up. So we're back. So that's the reason we're backing them up. And then Putin thought, hey, I want it all to be one big Russia again. And he's trying to get that. But I do got to give it to Ukraine because Ukraine, they thought they could just go in and take it over, and Ukraine's still fighting them, And, of course, with the election coming up, he's talking about pulling us out of NATO. I mean, this guy's nuts. Talking about pulling us out of, I call him dumb, you know what, but talking about pulling us out of NATO, talking about, and which could mean World War III, and he doesn't care about anybody but getting another Trump hotel in Russia, where he can make money. So,
okay, but the Ukraine war is recent.
Yeah.
It wasn't continuous.
No, and this
like Palestine.
Yeah, and this is continuous
for hundreds
of years over this land.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't want to keep going on Ukraine because we're supposed to be talking about Palestine, but Ukraine is much more complicated than just the invasion, once again, by Putin of Ukraine. But that's another story. That's another podcast.
Michael, so what do we do with boycotts?
Well, if your listeners are human, and
that's all they were.
They are upset by seeing 14,000 children, and that's an undercount, murdered. There are things they can do. All change begins with awareness. Okay, so the things that we've been talking about today, just the basic history, that has to be spread out so that the general population knows about it. There was a Pew Research study that came out about a month ago that asked which side, Israel or Palestine, has sustained more injuries and more deaths since October 7th.
Yes.
Only 50% of the people who answered that question got it right. They don't even know who's dying.
Yep.
Okay, so awareness is important.
Yeah.
All change starts with awareness. So talk to people, let them know what's happening. First, you have to educate yourself. Let other people know what's happening. There are movements out here. I'm involved in a lot of them. There is not a week that goes by without a protest. Are 14,000 children worth an hour of your time to go out to a protest? Think about it. You can make donations. There are people trying to feed the people of Gaza who are starving. There's a famine going on there. You can write your senators, write your Congress people, call them. That's even better. There are things that can be done.
And your politicians are, you can look them up online and you can email them right direct online. So there's a site where you can write and email your politicians online. I'm not sure what the site is, but it is out there. You could Google it.
Yeah.
I'll find it.
I didn't
Put
mean
it
to
in
cut
show
you off.
notes. I think it's important that you get the right kind of education, because when I was researching this talk, one of the strongest research that I've ever done in my 3 years of podcasting, you have to look at the source. AI doesn't even get it right. There's so much false education out there.
Right. Unfortunately, most Americans do their research via Google.
Yeah.
The internet is great.
Right.
Okay, but it does not you do not find things like are in the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. You don't find those on the internet. Okay. These people do research. Like I said when we first started this, I'm not an expert.
Yeah.
To be an expert, you have to study it. You have to find original sources. You have to find the truth. And you can't just summarize it. We want everything summarized.
Yeah.
And you really can't do that. As you were saying,
Yeah.
you have to do the research.
Yeah.
Michael, last protest that I went to with you in the school, you introduced me to a girl, and her dad was going over there as a doctor. And I think it's fair to say that doctors cannot wear their scrubs when they are out in public. They have to wear civilian clothes because they're being targeted. Reporters are being targeted. The truth is being blocked.
Right. And that's what genocide is. Israel does not want to destroy Hamas. They want to destroy Palestine. They want all of Palestine for themselves. I can tell you're a fan of Donald Trump. Well,
No.
Say, what?
No.
Got that one wrong.
No way.
No, I know that. I was being sarcastic.
He said that was sarcastic. I am not a fan of Donald Trump.
You used to be.
No,
I didn't.
no. The reason I say that is because his son-in-law, Donald Kushner,
Jared Kushner.
excuse me,
yeah.
when he was being interviewed, he said, Gaza is being destroyed, but on the good side, there's great economic opportunity there. That's a beautiful seafront.
Yeah.
This is the kind of people we're dealing with.
Yeah. And here's a guy who got his clearance pulled because he got $2 billion from Saudi Arabia that nobody talks about.
So that's what I would say is just people need to realize that this is not a war, it's a genocide.
Mm-hmm.
That if you take nothing away from this podcast, that's what I would say to take away. If you want, you can go to the internet and you can get the definition of genocide, and that is exactly what is going on.
And also too, and I really do mean this. I got friends who are of the Jewish faith, and what is going on in Israel now that we are not advocating hurting anybody who worships or anybody who practices the Jewish faith here in America. We are not advocating any of that or hurting any of those people. Please.
I think it's also fair to say that it's Zionists that are pushing this political thing forward.
Yeah.
Jewish are a peaceful nation.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the other thing, and that's kind of what we were talking about when we were talking about Zionism. Zionism is not Judaism.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And as much as the people who are supporting Israel would like to try and associate the two so that anytime you criticize Israel, they'll call you an anti-Semite.
Yeah.
That's not, and that's not the case.
And I'm just saying that
Israel and Judaism are two different things. In fact, it was mainly Orthodox Jews who protested against Zionism in the late 1800s and early 1900s.
And like you said, you got to educate yourself. And my thing is just, there are people out there going, oh well, these Israelis, these Jews are going there and they're going to go and they harm Jewish people or the Jewish faith or something like that. It's like no. Educate yourself. And like you said, Zionists are not Jewish people. So don't go harming Jewish people for this.
Michael, quick question: Zionism, how much is it, like census wise? How much is it that they are Jewish people? Just a rough estimate.
To be honest, I don't know.
Okay.
No.
Because what I researched was it's alleged Jewish and more Christianity kind of thing. I could be completely wrong, but that's what I had researched. So it's not even close to a Jewish nation. Just if you research nothing else on Google, you can research Judaism and their history of peace. They are a peaceful nation. So is Muslim.
Yes.
So, Michael, we're going to wrap it up.
Okay.
I appreciate you bringing this truth, and I hope it finds the listeners that need to listen to it.
And if you want to get that book, The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine, can you get that on Amazon or?
You can get it anywhere, and I listen to it on Audible.
Yeah, you can get it on Audible or anywhere you buy your books.
I would prefer you not get it off of Amazon.
Yes, please, no. Yes, please, no.
But there are
It is
many
so
bookstores where you can find
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
It's hard not to buy from Amazon. It's everywhere. And it's easy when you're a busy person. But you know what? Ever since I found out how much they need to be in so many areas blocked because their political views just alone. Yeah.
Bookshop.org
Yeah.
is a fantastic site. It supports independent booksellers, and you can get just about any book on that. That's bookshop.org.
Okay. And
We'll wrap it up.
okay, so Rach called it. Michael, we really thank you. This was definitely an interesting conversation. One of the most interesting conversations we ever had on this podcast, and one of the longest podcasts we had. We got to like an hour.
Reasonably so.
Reasonably so.
Like when me and Michael emailed each other yesterday, and I said we are not unknown to go over our 30 minutes, and this was a needed talk.
This was definitely a needed talk. Michael, definitely thank you for coming, and hopefully things will change for the better there. But if not, if so, no, I can't say if not, but hopefully things will change for the better. And if so, and new things come, we'd love to have you come on and talk some more, and definitely love you. And I'd let Rach close us out.
Absolutely. So, Michael, I don't know if you've heard one of our podcasts before, but I say a little closing. For the listeners, you can bow your head or close your eyes and just have this thought, have this wish for people. There are many people in this world that don't have their truth known. It's important to talk to those people and figure out how to help them so they're not hurting. This is a war that didn't start on October 7th. This is a war that has happened for hundreds of years. It is important to educate yourself and tell the truth to other people around you. One thing we didn't talk about on this podcast was Daryl Davis, and he, through peaceful conversation, changed the mind of 200 KKK members. I think it's important to understand that when you start yelling at people about your beliefs, they close their ears and stop listening. If you love people, if you love getting truth out there, tell them in the kindest way possible what the education and the truth of what's going on in this nation is. Have a great one.
Take it easy.